Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I, of course, am Mr. Warren Hayes, and it is time to talk about pro wrestling once again, right here on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes, or on your favorite podcast application, wherever it is you decide to latch on to the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. That's tremendous, and thank you for being here. And while you're at it, if you're watching on YouTube, do consider leaving a like on YouTube. That would be amazing. Or a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or a 5-star rating on Spotify. All these little things help grow the podcast. They're tremendous, and I appreciate it, just like I appreciate you joining the Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord. The link is in the description. If you want to come join a nice little community of people who like to talk about wrestling of all stripes, it's right there. Come on, we're waiting for you. What are you doing? You still haven't joined. What's going on? Where are you? What a weird bit. As for the podcast tonight, well, mostly stream highlights that we are going to be going forward. We are going to be talking about the Ryan Nemeth lawsuit. We're going to be talking about some WWE lawsuits as well. But we are going to start off by chit-chatting about some recent landing spots that certain free agent wrestlers have been able to secure for themselves. I haven't been talking about those for a while. Been really focused a lot on reviews and stuff. So yeah, we're gonna go over those. So this will be a good time. So let's get right to it. Thank you very much for being here. Let's start by talking about some landing places that have happened or that are happening for some pro wrestlers that have been out there. Some free agents, right? We're going to start talking about Speedball Mike Bailey, who got a coming soon vignette on this weekend's AEW Collision. Got a little video package. Speedball Mike Bailey is coming, which I don't know if this is anything interestingly new. I think that everyone was kind of expecting this to happen. I think it was reported like in December, right, or something, that he was likely coming to AEW. Hell, I remember us speculating here on the podcast as we were going into the C2, that the C2 would be a great place to debut Speedball. Have him come in as a surprise entrant, you know? You don't have to reveal that he's signed. You know, I still think that would have been a great thing to do. Have him come in as a surprise entrant, like someone from the outside joining the tournament, just like they do in the G1, right? You have people who aren't from the company who come in and do the tour, do the tournament, right? So you have Speedball show up. Everyone goes, oh, that's tremendous. Speedball is going to have some great matches. And then he has some great matches, but he doesn't win the thing. But after, you know, you have Tony Khan come out and say, Speedball, you had such a great performance here in the C2 in front of these great fans here, and the AEW fans love you, and they would like to give you an opportunity to wrestle here. And when I say they, I mean me, Speedball Mike Bailey, here is your contract, you know, kind of thing. I think my Tony Khan is pretty good. I've kind of been working a little bit on my Tony Khan. I think it's pretty good. I think Arena Tony Khan, that's kind of how he sounds like. I think I'm on it. I think I'm on to. Could use a little more work, but I think it's pretty good. I think that him landing in AEW is probably like the best overall spot for him, right? Like he's not a WWE type guy, especially not in the direction that they're going. You know, he's a phenomenal pro wrestler. We're gonna have to find someone else to fill the shoes of him working 11 shows during WrestleMania weekend, and maybe he's even thankful to not have to do that again this year. Maybe he's like, oh, finally, you know, I can kick back a little bit more. You know, not be as worried about my financial year moving forward. So it's honestly the best landing spot for him. Could you see Speedball Mike Bailey landing in NXT, for instance, right? Have him land in NXT and then have like Pillman Jr. be the guy who comes out, hey, Speedball, you know, that nasal delivery that Pillman Jr. has, you know what I'm talking about. And like there would be no leeway for him to be Mike Bailey. There's so much he'd have to change. It's really the best thing for him to be in AEW. You know, is this the perfect era of AEW for him to join? Probably not. Like probably when, you know, in when we got out of the pandemic, I think that would have been a really tremendous moment for him to join, because you know, everyone was having like great matches constantly, and I think there was a lot of focus on that before we did the sports entertainment pivot, the full sports entertainment pivot, I should say. With the way things are being booked right now, I'm a little more confident that Speedball is going to be able to find his footing, that he's going to be able to come across as the great wrestler that he is, without having to resort to, you know, sports entertainment nonsense. But then again, you never quite know in this company with how things go. So, you know, I'm going to stay hopeful. I still think this is the best for him. There's some great matches I want to see out of this as well. You know, who wouldn't want to see Kenny Omega and Speedball at this point? You know, we saw Speedball and Takeshita mix it up at the Maple Leaf Pro. Let's run that again. I thought that was tremendous. You know, those are my thoughts. I think it's the best possible spot for him. I think it's good. I think it's very good. And, you know, he'll still have the opportunity to work the indies, of course, but, you know, collect a steady paycheck, which is fine. Like, Speedball's been on this grind for a long fucking time. He's been on the grind for a long time. So I think that's good. I think it's good. And you know who his first opponent should be? Straight out the gate, AR Fox. I think his first opponent, nice little enhancement match, AR Fox. I think that's the way to go. Speedball in WWE would have been dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. We also got some news that Josh Alexander is reported to sign with AEW, his free agency period. Let's read the article off of the Observer that was published on Valentine's Day on the 14th. See, I'm really backlogged on this stuff. I haven't been talking about this stuff, and I should be more. Shout out to Josh Nason, tremendous dude. The free agency period for Josh Alexander appears to be a short one. Fightful reported Friday, which I guess is Valentine's Day, right? That the former TNA World Champion is expected to sign with AEW if he hasn't already, both by those within the company and those close to him. The outlet reported that his deal expired as of Friday, ending a multi-year run in TNA that started in 2018. After his final TNA match against Eric Young that aired Thursday, Alexander posted a long social media message thanking the company, saying he was eternally grateful. Our Dave Meltzer, again, this is the Observer speaking, not me. Dave Meltzer doesn't work for me yet. Dave Meltzer couldn't confirm the news, but stated, quote, "I can confirm that he has made up his mind on where he's going." Interestingly enough, Alexander's former co-worker and free agent, Speedball Mike Bailey, was previously reported to also be heading to AEW for the first of the year, but there has been no movement on that as of now. Wow, how times have changed. The 37-year-old first made a name for himself within TNA as teammates with current NXT roster member Ethan Page as The North. The duo won the TNA tag team titles twice, the Impact titles twice. They weren't the... But anyway, let's not be too pedantic. The first time lasting 380 days. That run from the North was actually really good. In late 2020, Alexander began a singles run that started in the X division, winning the title at Rebellion in April 2021. His 145-day reign ended when he invoked TNA's Option C, where a champion can relinquish their title for a world shot. Well, he defeated Christian Cage for the title at October 21st, 2021, Bound for Glory. He was then defeated by Moose straight afterward, after he using his Call Your Shot gauntlet. I remember that, and it pissed me off royally. Alexander's second run began by his revenge over Moose at April 2022's Rebellion and lasted nearly a year. He again had to relinquish the title, but this time doing a triceps tear that kept him out of action for months. He would never regain it. Josh Alexander is, I think in a lot of ways, was kind of like a modern AJ Styles for TNA. Whereas it's a guy that fans universally liked, that people knew was an incredible worker, could get the job done, and was a great champion babyface, and was very loyal to the company until the company started messing with him. When I say messing with him, there's rumors going around in TNA last year. A lot of people, once Scott D'Amore left, a lot of people were like, well, we either won't be renewing your contract, or, you're going to have to take a pay cut, and so on and so forth. So that's why there was a bit of I don't want to call it an exodus, but why there was some people who ended up leaving the company. It's because they weren't, the terms weren't exactly as friendly as they once were. So, I'm sure Alexander was doing a living wage in TNA. I'm not saying that he was he was starving by any means. He was one of their top guys, but I'm sure that him being positioned as a top guy, and then being told, yeah, we're not gonna renew or whatever, might have to make a little less this year, the times are difficult and so on and so forth. He's like, no, screw this. I'm going elsewhere. I'm packing my shit and I'm going elsewhere. I'm going to try it elsewhere. And, now he's quite likely going to get a much bigger deal with AEW. If this is indeed what happens next, he's going to get a bigger deal. He's going to get more money, and good for him, because this is a guy who has given a lot to pro wrestling. He obviously loves it. Tremendous worker. And again, it's a guy who I think is a guy who is who this is a good landing spot for him, as opposed to WWE. There is no, I don't even see what kind of spot Josh Alexander could fill in AEW, in WWE, excuse me. I don't see it. I have no clue how he could fit in the modern WWE. No idea at all. And I really think like this is the best move for him, because this is another place that he can, because this is a place where he can continue to practice his trade as he's under his signature, under what he's known for, and that's very sound, very hard-hitting, technically sound matches of high levels of quality. So, I mean, good for him, and I think it's I think it's a win overall. And it's nice to think that Brandy's gamble for hiring Ethan Page is finally paying off years after Brandy has gone, and about a year now since Ethan Page has left, or however long. The point is that Brandy's gamble is finally paying off. Good for you. Now, before we move on to the others, the thing that I do want to point out, because this is something that I talked about just not that long ago, when there were all these WWE releases that were happening, right? That happened, and I was flat out saying, I don't see any of these people going to AEW and joining. I don't see any of them joining AEW. I posited one of the reasons why AEW shouldn't pick them up is they need to be careful of both the size and the composition of their roster. They are currently divesting themselves of some elements of the roster that were clouds, that cast a dark shadow on stuff, and they're finally getting rid of these people that may hold grudges, resentments, or whatever. Some people who might be too WWE brained to want, to want to do the right thing in AEW, so on and so forth, right? We've discussed this. I think this is still valid here by bringing in these two guys. Like it's exactly like what we were talking about with the recent releases. If you bring in these people, who's losing their spot? Who's losing their spot? Who are we not seeing from AEW that we love, that we want to see more of, but we haven't been seeing for multiple reasons? And now we probably won't see them either. Like, it's like Top Flight. Dante Martin was pretty much felt like a shoo-in a couple of years ago for a star in the company. And now it's like, you can barely find him on TV anymore. That's always the question. It's like, who's losing their spot? And it's the same thing here. You bring in Speedball, you bring in Alexander. There's people who are not going to be featured who might have been people that maybe we've been looking forward to, or that you're like, why isn't Tony pushing this guy or that girl for that instance? I don't know. Like I'm excited on one side because these are two wrestlers that I really, really like. I really like Josh Alexander and I really like Speedball. But on the same side, I'm still consistent with what I was talking about a couple of weeks ago, where it's like, we're finally getting rid of people on the roster, potentially opening up some spots. Not that they were really occupying spots, Malachi Black and Miro and Ricky, they weren't occupying spots, but nonetheless, you're getting rid of those. If you're bringing more people in, you're smothering other people who are in AEW and who are not going to be used. No matter, it still stands. Like, it's still a true statement. Even if we're maybe more inclined to like these guys as opposed to some of the WWE cast-offs that were released, Plus, but the benefit here is that the benefit here is that for these TNA guys, going to AEW will be perceived as an upgrade, as opposed to WWE guys who went to AEW and saw it as a downgrade. And even it's like, I should be ruling the roost here because I worked at WWE and now I'm coming to your little, your little barnyard dance here. So, I mean, like I said, it's still overall good news for them. We'll see how it plays out. But I can't help but feel a little, a little apprehension, just a little apprehension. So listen, that's where we're at right now with Josh Alexander. Let's move on. Elias or Elijah or whatever he's called now. After showing up on a Ring of Honor vignette with the Righteous, makes a surprise Impact appearance. This is on February 20th, and reportedly signs with TNA. So let's read this article once again. The wrestler formerly known as Elias in WWE has made his TNA debut and reportedly signed with the company. Now here comes the funny part though. Elias, now known as Elijah, made his surprise debut on Thursday's live TNA Impact, saving world champion Joe Hendry from an attack at the hands of the former Primo and Epico Cologne, also making their debuts in TNA. I'm gonna put it. Look, I gotta tell you, these Colognes, brother, they always seem to end up on my bingo cards, or not. No, let me say that again. That's not the gimmick. They never show up on my bingo cards, but they always prove it wrong. Jesus Christ. Fightful reports that Elijah has signed with TNA, both known for their wrestling concerts. Hendry and Elijah then teamed against the Colognes in the Impact main event, scoring the victory. Elijah was released by WWE in September 2023 after a 9-year run with the company, both on the NXT brand and on the main roster. He was on the NXT brand for like a cup of coffee, right? And he was the Drifter, right? His gimmick is that he'd walk in the arena. Remember that? Remember that? He was the Drifter. He was the Drifter. He wrestled regularly on the independent scene since reaching free agency in January 2024 and adopting the moniker. Prior to his Impact appearance, Elijah had posted a video to social media hinting at an alliance with the AEW Ring of Honor tag team The Righteous, leading some to speculate that he was AEW Ring of Honor bound. So good for him. Good for settling in in for TNA and being back under the old WWE umbrella. And I'm sure he's happy about that. Between this and the Hardys, right? Because you've heard about the Hardy Boys too, right? The Hardys, I have it here on the docket. Let's read this and then I'll get to my thought. WWE is optimistic about Hardy Boys' main roster run this spring/summer. The current TNA World Tag Team Champions are set to wrestle the No Quarter Catch Crew, Tavian Heights and Miles Bourne on tonight's episode of NXT, as we're recording this, marking their first time teaming in WWE since 2019. The match is part of the ongoing partnership between WWE and TNA. And WWE Shop released special edition Hardy Boys t-shirts ahead of their return. So yeah, that's it. It's like, WrestleVote says that WWE is optimistic that they might have a program on main roster and so on and so forth. And that's fine and all. But just what I want to point out here is something that I talked about. Again, I think I might have been onto something. Once again, I might be right. Time will tell. But it's, kind of looking like this idea of, WWE talent going to TNA, staying within the WWE umbrella, like we said, but they're not getting the big contract. They're not, WWE's not paying them money. Is not giving them the big contract with all the stipulations and whatnot. They're offsetting the costs to TNA. They're your employees. No, they're your contractors. TNA, excuse me, dare I say. But we can use them whenever we want, right? Yeah, sure, no problem. WWE, you can use them whenever you want. Great. But it's like the idea that this deal that WWE has with TNA could actually be just a way for WWE to hang on to talent without having to pay for it seems to be coming a little more, it seems to be coming around a little more these days. I feel like there's, with Elias making his way back, the Hardys, and the rumors going around that they might have a main roster program, even though it is WrestleVote's reporting it. It's like, well, there you go. TNA is going to, TNA's, whenever they have talent that is going to be over, we know what's going to happen. WWE is going to drain them out of the company. Yeah, I can't imagine TNA fans being enchanted about this, where they're like, hey, this kind of sucks. I've heard about, fans going to TNA shows. I heard of fans going to TNA shows and, most of them like sticking around to do the meet and greets and having these long lineups to do the meet and greets with the Hardys. It's like, this is going to be the nature of the relationship. And there's not going to be one TNA person who's going to be like, nah, I'm going to stay here. You think Moose, like the most TNA wrestler that ever TNA'd, Moose. You think if Moose got called up to go join WWE, you think he'd go, Like, no, I'm going to stay with TNA because fuck no. They're all going to jump if they're offered, and TNA's going to, be theirs holding the bag. Joe Hendry's leaving. It's not confirmed, but, the way he's been acting, the way he's been tweeting, it's like, this is all, Joe Hendry's going to be the next guy going up once this all comes up in April, right? He's there tweeting stuff at Logan Paul. Like, he's playing the game. He understands what he has to do. The Hardys don't want to. Do you really think they want to stick around TNA? Or maybe they'll just have a nice little program and they will stick around TNA. Because maybe WWE is going to be like, hey, you know what? We don't want to. TNA, why don't you deal with Jeff Hardy? Why don't you deal with Jeff? We don't want to do that anymore. We've done our part, whatever. This is what it is. This is essentially what this relationship is. The Colognes ending up in TNA. Probably, Carlito was unquestionably trying to get them hired. And then at some point, someone probably said, well, why don't you send them to TNA? I learned today doing a bit of research that the Colognes wrestled in the NWA. I did not know that. I thought they had completely disappeared off the face of pro wrestling, but no, they've still been active. Anyway, look, again, good for them, good for Elias. TNA seems like perfect landing spots for both of them, and they're under the watchful umbrella of WWE, so they'll probably just be waiting for a call at this point. I don't know who's excited about Hardy Boys matches in 2025. I don't know who's excited about it. Maybe it's the same kind of people who are excited at the idea of a Bullet Club reunion in AEW. That does nothing for me. Like, we're not even sure Bullet Club exists anymore in New Japan. I'm like, I don't care. Why would we try to relive some glory days? There's really no point to it at this point. I guess look, nostalgia in pro wrestling. It's a big deal. It's huge. It pushes merch, it pushes tickets, it pushes interest. People love the people, they love the nostalgia. So that's why the Hardys are still around. You still have kids today doing the Jeff Hardy dance. And they weren't even alive when Jeff Hardy was doing the Jeff Hardy dance, unbroken. Still very much in his prime. I don't know. I will always love the contributions of the Hardys to pro wrestling. They've given us some great matches and they've entertained me for many years, but not anymore, man. I really don't know what they have to provide anymore. I really don't. So that's kind of where I am right now. That's where I am, where they are, as it pertains to free agency and some landing spots for a few pro wrestlers. So we'll continue keeping an eye on all of this. So I'm sure you've all heard by now. If you haven't, well, God bless. That means you're not on. You don't hang out on X, formerly Twitter, or Blue Sky, or even Reddit in this case, which is good for your mental health. Don't get me wrong. This has been the talk of the town. Now, this weekend, I like it. As I pointed out, I did a lot of cooking. I sometimes, for a couple of days, I'm going to stay away from a lot of the social media. I'll pop in a couple of my haunts, but in a lot of circumstances, I'll stay. Not in a lot of circumstances, but once in a while, frequently, I should say. I take a day, 2 days where I'm not scrolling. I'm not looking for stuff. I'm just like, just put that all aside, right? So I saw the news of the Nemeth lawsuit pop up. I saw news of it, but I didn't go ahead and read up on it. I didn't click on it. I was just doing other stuff. What do you want from me? Like, I'll be able to catch up with this. And you know what? And then at some point, then yesterday comes around, and I'm finishing watching CMLL. I did some laundry, and I'm like, okay, so do I read the Nemeth thing? I should read. No, I say to myself, I should read the Nemeth thing. But then I'm like, hey, why don't I read it live? Why don't I read it for everyone, right? So I go off and play Civ 6 instead. So then, like, late this afternoon, as I'm preparing things for the stream tonight, I'm looking for the lawsuit. Like, I'm going around, and I see a lot of articles popping up. I see a lot of people, just discussing it, aggregators. But I'm looking for the actual lawsuit, and I guess it hasn't been released or made fully public. Like, it's not like out there. So I'm like, all right, well, maybe there's reasons for that. And, I was able to catch up with stuff, and nonetheless, but I was like, okay, well, so unfortunately, like, I don't have the actual docket. I don't have the full suit, which is a shame. I like to read through the whole suit. I like to do that, especially with you guys. But we're going to have to settle for excerpts that were provided to us via Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful, which is fine. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, oh, goddamn, just giving us the scraps as Sean Ross Sapp. No, that's fine. Like, I want to be clear. I don't have a problem with that. It's just, I would have liked to read the whole thing myself. But it's, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. So again, here's what I know, just to be clear. I know everyone thinks it's really funny. I know a lot of people think it's comical. I saw Bix post that it feels a little bit like a troll job. And then I started asking around. I was like, well, who's his representation? Who's his lawyer? And I can't seem to get the answer either. So, is he representing himself? Is that what he's doing here? So, okay, might as well get to it. Hey, and by the way, leave a like on this video if you haven't already. I appreciate that tremendously. As I take a little sip, and we get to it. Let's have a little look here. So I'm trying to avoid the summary here and just okay. Fightful provided the following excerpt from the suit. Ryan Nemeth. So this is from what we understand. I think we all understand. We're all on the same page here. This is an excerpt from the lawsuit itself, right? Okay. Ryan Nemeth is a successful actor, comedian, and stuntman. Okay, we're off to a rousing start here. I mean, that's what he fancies himself. Actor, comedian, stuntman. Successful. Now, okay, I am the first to say that success comes in different packages, right? Not a lot of people, let me say that again. You can have multiple versions of what success is, right? Is making $1 billion a year successful to you, or is, being a top volunteer at your charity organization success for you, right? Success has multiple different facets. So I don't want to necessarily make fun of that, but when you, in the context of a successful actor, comedian, and stuntman, when you say there's a difference between being successful and being a success. Does that make sense? And I don't know if I would consider, like, in in layman's term as to when you hear the words a successful actor, who comes to mind? And whoever comes to mind when you think successful actor with this little thought exercise here, whoever comes to mind is not Ryan Nemeth and is on a completely different level than Ryan Nemeth as far as success goes, right? Let's go to his IMDb page. Let's just go. Maybe there's a bunch of things that we're missing, right? Maybe there's a bunch of things that we just don't know about. So he is known for the Iron Claw for playing Gino Hernandez. Okay. Yes, that very profound portrayal of Gino Hernandez in the Iron Claw. I do remember seeing him in this one episode of I Think You Should Leave. The Proposal Park Wrestler, where Brody King is in that one too. I think Eric Rowan is in that one as well, right? Buff Wrestler in the Eric Andre show. All right. Jimmy Kimmel Live. He seems to have multiple roles, including Canadian Moose, Cowboy Andy, and it's cut off a little bit here, but it seems to say hot boyfriend. All right. Let's see. TNA Impact, Jimmy. Wanted Man. He was in a short. He was a zombie man. Then on Collision and Dynamite. He has a podcast he was on one episode of a podcast. That's also tremendous. Tune In With Me. He was uncredited. My Neighbors Are Dead. Okay. Think You Should Leave. AEW. All right. As it stands right now, a lot of acting, a lot of podcast appearances, but a lot of short. He played Sasquatch in a video called Low. Timber, the series. The Unauthorized Bash Brothers Experience. He is the hunky reporter. And these are roles that go all the way back to 2018. He was in the Wiggling Gypsy. Folks, Ryan Nemeth played the action star in The Wiggling Gypsy. When an eccentric drifter pops in on his good buddy, he quickly realizes that he is in a commercial where monetization is not in the forecast. Sounds tremendous. The Wiggling Gypsy. Uncredited as a construction worker in a Pee Wee Herman film. And WWE NXT as Briley Pierce. Stuntman. He has 3 credits as a stuntman. Wanted Man, Iron Claw. He was the stunt coordinator for Wanted Man. Wrestling utility stunts in the Iron Claw. And he did stunts in the Guardians of Justice, which was a thing with DDP. Parody of the Avengers. I kind of liked it. I thought it was fun. It was dopey and fun. It's that guy, Adi Shankar. What's he called? What's his name? Andy. Wait, it's probably right there, right? Andy Shankar. John Morrison is also in there. There's a lot of pro wrestling crossover in that one. Wanted Man is the Brothers post WWE vignette. Oh, so basically his claim to being successful here is basically laid upon his wrestling career and performing in some shorts and having some appearances as having some bit parts, gag bit parts, right? That's essentially it. Yeah, I know it's his brother. Dolph is much more well connected. Anyway, let's continue on. I think we've established that, successful actor, comedian, and stuntman. The stuntman part is particularly dubious, unless you want to consider pro wrestling as stunts, but I don't. I like to consider pro wrestling as pro wrestling. And even on his IMDb, the wrestling stuff isn't classified, isn't tagged as stunts. So, Nemeth also followed his older brother Nick's career and has established himself as a star performer on the professional wrestling circuit. Ah, yes. Yes. Star performer. Oh, it's fine. The bits write themselves. Nemeth was under contract with AEW. AEW is owned by Shahid and Tony Khan. Shahid Khan is the owner of the NFL franchise Jacksonville Jaguars. When his son, Tony, managed to alienate most everyone within the Jaguars organization, including star NFL players, Tony was moved to a leadership role in the Khan family-owned Fulham Football Club. What the hell? What? What's this? Okay. Okay, sure. Let's continue. Tony ended up mismanaging Fulham, leading to multiple lawsuits against the club. Is this true? Tony was moved to a, okay, but I mean, it's funny because they're saying like he alienated everyone in the Jaguars organization, and Tony was moved to a leadership role in Fulham FC. Then Tony ended up mismanaging Fulham, leading to multiple lawsuits against the club. Like that just sounds like, this sounds like a Twitter post. You know what I mean? Since he was a child, Tony loved professional wrestling and had an obsession with certain wrestlers. The Khan family formed AEW to provide Tony with something to do. Safely away from the family's other ventures. Excuse me? This is the billionaire version of, son, I'm gonna build you a sandbox, right? Like that's this is legitimately laughable. It's legitimately laughable. This can't be real. This can't be real. If it were anyone else than Fightful, I'd be super dubious. But Sean wouldn't be posting this if this wasn't exactly if this wasn't exactly it. The narrative that exists that because this is not the first time I hear this narrative of, oh well, it's Shad that bought AEW for Tony so that Tony would have something to do and stay out of his hair kind of thing. Like, I'm sure many of you have heard that one before. But the one thing you have to keep in mind is that a billionaire may have, unfathomable amounts of money for, humdrum, lowly peons like you and I. But the one thing they don't like is losing money, and they want to make more money. That's just how it goes. So they wouldn't just give Tony like, oh, well, here's a couple of, hundreds of millions of dollars and go play with your toys kind of thing. If it wasn't done, they wouldn't do that. This is like, Shad wants return on his investment. Tony wants to make money. That's just how billionaires are. They're not going to sit there and be content with the amount of money. If they're in a venture, they're going to want their venture to make them even richer. That's the point. So it's not like, go lose some money with your Mark friends. It's like, no, that's not how it works, So I can't believe, is this legitimately, it's legitimately in a lawsuit. This is really funny. Oh boy, next paragraph. Here we go. Now let's go. Phil Brooks. Those are the content. Phil Brooks was another wrestler under contract with AEW and a member of the AEW management team. Kind of knew this, right? There's always been sort of little, yeah, okay. But I mean, Ryan Nemeth could also be full of shit by saying this, right? Tony had a deep fascination with Brooks. True. Brooks undertook a campaign to terrorize and intimidate plaintiff, including physical assault. AEW and Tony Khan did nothing to protect Ryan Nemeth and other wrestling performers from despicable conduct on the part of Brooks. AEW turned a blind eye to Brooks's conduct because of Tony's deep admiration for Brooks and because he was their most popular wrestling performer. Yes. 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 Like, this is indefensible. This is true. Like, you can't. This is what we've all been saying since the brawl out, since that happened. It's been exactly that. Tony couldn't bring himself to admonish his top guy, his best friend. Where they text each other till 3 a.m. All right, I'm going to bed. No, I'm going to bed first. Oh, kind of thing. I might be slightly exaggerating, but nonetheless, and to a degree, right? And because that degree is very low. It's like 3 degrees. But to a degree, I understand Tony Khan being stoked at the idea of CM Punk working for him, with him, and them connecting on stuff because it's fucking CM Punk. Tony Khan ended up being the guy who convinced CM Punk to return to pro wrestling. And I also would kind of be, puff my chest out and be like, this is pretty cool. And this is one of the great lost stars of pro wrestling, and he's come back for me, and we're gonna make this work, god damn it. But it's just Phil was Phil. At Brooks and Tony's insistence, AEW and Tony Khan have taken an effort to blackball Nemeth so we can never work. It probably meant he, great typo there. So he can never work in the wrestling. So he can never again work in the wrestling business. Now, that's harsh. Well, I can't speak for CM Punk because he's petty as shit, but I'm sure Tony doesn't give a rat's ass. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. All right. So we skip to first entry number 14. Number 14. So all the preceding stuff was probably like the usual things that you have in when you start off a lawsuit. AEW is based out of Jacksonville, whatever the fuck. It's usually all of this things. Now we skip all of that and get into the juicy stuff. At all relevant times mentioned herein, Brooks was also an employee of AEW, serving a role in executive leadership. In early 2023, Brooks assaulted and battered 2 fellow wrestlers known by the names of Matt and Nick Jackson. That is no. Okay, yes, but also no. Because it didn't happen in early 2023. The brawl out happened in late 2022. Right, chat? Right. Thank you, chat. Yeah, no, that didn't happen. I like how assaulted and battered 2 fellow wrestlers. Can't get any dates correct. I'm excited. I'm here for this shit. This is horrible so far. Brooks is known to have an uncontrollable temper and often lashes out in violent tirades against others. Thus, defendants. Why defendants? Who's plural? Why plural? Who is? Thus, defendants were on notice regarding Brooks' violent proclivities. Who are the defendants? Isn't it just Nemeth, or are there multiple people in this suit? I skipped a lot of the stuff here. The defendants, okay, CM Punk and Tony Khan. And, okay, all right. Those defendants were on notice regarding Brooks' violent proclivities. I don't understand the sentence. The defendants were on notice. What are they on notice? Rather than removing Brooks from the AEW roster of wrestlers, Tony Khan made the decision to merely suspend Brooks for a few months. Also, he was injured. Like, that's also, I mean, look, he was also injured, and I'm not even sure Tony Khan would have suspended him, to be frank. I think it all just was convenient, but yeah. Brooks is one of AEW's most popular wrestlers. He's no longer with the company. But Brooks is one of AEW's most popular wrestlers, and Khan did not feel that Brooks could be removed without a substantial loss in profit for AEW. I agree. Further, Khan has a very deep personal affinity for Brooks. Jesus Christ. He's painting him like a fangirl. Khan made the conscious decision to keep Brooks as a part of AEW, although he knew that Brooks is prone to lashing out in violent episodes and to injure others. Injure others? That's hard. But violent episodes? Sure. Outbursts? Sure. But it's also pro wrestling. Like, I can understand if you're outside looking in. That's always a thing, right? If you're outside looking into the pro wrestling business, we're used to hearing these kinds of things, right? Where it's like, Chris Jericho he fought Bill Goldberg backstage and he beat the shit out of Goldberg, and Dynamite Kid and Jacques Rougeau and all that shit. It's just something that happens that's just always been present in pro wrestling, right? It's always been a thing. So we hear this and it's like, sure. But if you're on the outside looking in, you're like, wait a second, why are you hiring people that go around beating up other people backstage and it's not part of the show? Well, then it gets a little too, beyond his deep 17, beyond his deep feelings for Brooks. It makes what is there going to be a revelation here that they made out at some point on the plane over to Wembley? No, because Phil didn't make he wasn't picked up at the airport. They weren't in the same plane, whatever. They made out in the bus heading to Jacksonville. Despite deep feelings for Brooks, Khan represented to AEW executives and wrestlers that the TBS network had produced the AEW Collision show contingent upon Brooks' involvement as the show's star. This was all the more reason for Khan to keep Brooks in spite of his violent propensities. Violent proclivities, violent propensities. What a thespian this dude is. Like, there's no fucking way there's no way a lawyer wrote this. There's no way. No way. During his suspension for reasons unknown, Brooks made it known that he despised Nemeth. Nemeth did nothing to Brooks whatsoever, but nothing whatsoever. But Brooks made it well known that he was angry with Nemeth. Brooks had a notorious history for taking violent action against others for no reason. This all started because Nemeth subtweeted about him, right? He vague tweeted about Phil being a dick. And then CM Punk, the softest man alive, confronted him. He wasn't happy about it. And he confronted him about it. Was that the tweet? Softest man alive? Okay, there you go. No, ChatGPT couldn't. First of all, ChatGPT wouldn't make typos. First of all, it wouldn't make typos. It's not ChatGPT. No way. Like, pro wrestling is inherently weird, okay? And you shouldn't have to come to work. Legitimately, all right? You shouldn't have to come to work. And I don't give a shit in what environment you're working in, where other guys, where you can't trust the other guys because everyone's fucking lying all the fucking time. And you never know when you might say something cross or say something that may cross another guy the wrong way. And next thing you're getting, you're taking your bags home and you open them up and they're full of actual feces, or you get popped in the mouth, whatever the fuck. On April 16, 2023, Nemeth contacted executives within AEW to tell his employer that he was worried Brooks would come back to the wrestling circuit following his suspension and assault Nemeth. Okay. On June 21st, 2023, following Brooks's return to the wrestling circuit, I love it, the wrestling circuit. It's not a word we use enough. Like piss pot. We don't use piss pot enough. On June 21st, 2023, following Brooks' return to the wrestling circuit, he assaulted Nemeth in the male locker room. In a menacing manner, Brooks shouted at Nemeth, "Do we have a fucking problem? Do we need to step outside and handle this like men?" Nemeth was cornered by Brooks and did everything he could to de-escalate the situation. June 21st. Is that the night that Nemeth was turned away? It feels early. Wait a minute. Okay, so when did AEW Collision debut? June 27th. So it would have been the week after. So at least he's got that right. Let's head over to the Observer for a second here. I'm pretty sure we got some kind of timeline here. Shortly after Punk returned on the debut episode of AEW Collision on June 17, 2023, Nemeth tweeted, "Literally the softest man alive," seemingly referring to Punk. Days later, Punk reportedly confronted Nemeth about the comment backstage. Right. Okay. June 21 is a Wednesday? June 21 is a Wednesday? Because Collision 2 would have been on June 24. So this would have happened at the Dynamite, but aren't we saying here days? Okay, let's see what the report says here. Okay, more details emerged throughout Monday regarding a June confrontation between CM Punk and Ryan Nemeth, and Nemeth's booked on booking from Saturday's AEW Collision in Greensboro. Okay, so Nemeth was brought into Greensboro on Saturday and was told he wasn't needed, given his itinerary to return home. That was on the same night a pre-taped promo Hangman Page was brought in for was moved this off-site rather than being done at the building. Later in the night, Punk threw verbal jabs at Page and unnamed others in an off-air promo. Meltzer said on Sunday's Observer Radio that other talents have experiences the same treatment regarding Saturday bookings regarding Matt Hardy and other talent, Christopher Daniels, blah, 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 blah. Okay. The Nemeth situation. The general gist, according to House of Wrestling's Nick Houseman, oh my, that one's already dusty, is Punk looking to keep drama out of the Collision locker room, which is where the Nemeth tweet comes into the equation. PW Torch's Wade Keller also wrote that Punk is trying to keep things harmonious on Saturdays, as he is fiercely protective of Collision being a low drama environment, which is why he doesn't want wrestlers he perceives as disloyal or too closely aligned with the elite crew to be backstage at Collision. The crux of the issue between Punk and Nemeth stem from Nemeth's "literally the softest man alive" tweet, which came after Punk's return promo on the debut of Collision. According to Keller, the aforementioned confrontation between Punk and Nemeth took place on the June 21st Dynamite in Chicago that Punk made a surprise appearance on. So it does connect. That does make sense. He went to Chicago. He was called in for duty on the Dynamite. Was called in, and then the confrontation with Punk happened. So it connects on that point. 21, the next day, Nemeth was contacted by Tony Schiavone and other executives from AEW to explain what happened. Nemeth calmly and factually explained that he was attacked by Brooks in the locker room. Nemeth was contacted by Schiavone and other executives to explain what happened. He calmly explained that. Okay. 22, following the assault, nothing happened to Brooks as far as punishment from AEW. Again, of course not. It's like 23. It is well known in the wrestling industry that benching a wrestler is a form of punishment. We don't call it benching in pro wrestling. We call it catering. Get the lingo right, Ryan. That is, the wrestling performer is not scheduled for a match and thus is not paid. Benching a wrestler is a customary manner of punishing a wrestler. Following the incident with Brooks, Nemeth greatly feared being benched by AEW. Nemeth spoke with AEW's in-house counsel and attorneys from Latham and Watkins, outside counsel for AEW. All of the attorneys promised that Nemeth would not be benched. Better have receipts for that, brother. 25. Following his June 22nd conversation with Tony Schiavone al., Nemeth was not booked for a match for over 2 months. 26. Because Nemeth was not booked for matches, his income stream from AEW dried up. More importantly, his popularity and marketability faded from being absent from the professional wrestling circuit. Oh yes, all of the people, like the dozens upon dozens of people clamoring for the Hollywood hunk to return to TV. Yes. I understand what he means, though. The marketability aspect is important. I get that. On June 17, Nemeth again, 2023, Nemeth again contacted AEW's legal department to complain that he was being punished for doing nothing. Hang on a second here, pal. Wait a minute. Did he go back in time? How did he do that? How did he do that? Hikaru, nice to see you. Welcome to the chat. How did he do that? How did he go back in time to June 17, 2023 to complain again that he was being punished for doing nothing when the event hadn't even happened yet? Is Ryan a time traveler? Does he travel through time? Is he an everything, everybody, everywhere, all the time guy? Does he leave the googly eyes on the rocks and stuff? That's tremendous, though. Like, what a preemptive strike when you think about it. Stole Kushita's DeLorean. It's tremendous, though, when you think about it. Like, that's some 4D chess here. The event hasn't even happened, and he's calling on June 17 to ask why has nothing been done to the event that's going to happen. It's what's the Tom Cruise movie? Minority Report. Maybe that's the whole setup that Ryan Nemeth has in his room. Is like he's got these things. So Nemeth was again contacted. It was then discovered. Oh wait a second. It was then that Nemeth discovered the real reason why he was being benched. Brooks had insisted upon this. Oh no! Oh no! The top guy in the company throwing his weight around. Gee Willikers. Because Tony Khan had such a deep admiration. He is not letting this one go. Because Tony Khan had such a deep admiration for Brooks, bordering on an obsession, Khan went along with Brooks's desires to ruin Nemeth's career. Look, I don't care about how obsessed Tony Khan was with CM Punk. I think he did have a profound attachment to him. I think he felt connected to them. From what I understood, they really got along well. They were pals. Regardless of that, regardless of whether he was obsessed or not, Tony Khan did decide to go along with it. This ultimately had to be his call, whether or not Brooks was like, if Tony Khan didn't want this to happen, he's the boss. He could have sat everyone down and say, it's enough. That's enough. But he didn't. On August 12, 2023, Nemeth was finally booked for an event in Greensboro, North Carolina. That was 30 now. On the morning of August 12, Nemeth was walking through the hotel lobby to board a shuttle to the sports arena where the wrestling match would take place. He saw Brooks. Brooks immediately took out his phone and began to text. A completely normal thing to do, really, but go on. 31. A moment after the text was sent, Nemeth received a text from AEW's supervisor, Pat Buck, saying he needed to speak with Nemeth as soon as he got to the arena. 32. Upon arriving at the arena, Nemeth sought out Pat Buck. Buck told Nemeth that he needed to leave the arena immediately and that travel would be arranged for him to fly out on that same day. 33. Nemeth was embarrassed and humiliated in front of other wrestlers who witnessed him being kicked out of the arena. More importantly, fans observed him leaving the arena. Pictures were taken and the expulsion became viral on social media. I don't recall this. I do not recall fans posting pictures of Ryan Nemeth leaving the venue. I legitimately do not remember this. I do not remember that. I feel like I'd remember that. I know my brain can be Swiss cheese sometimes, but I feel like I'd remember that. This humiliation caused irreparable damage to the marketability and reputation of Nemeth. Not as much as this lawsuit so far, brother. 34. This entire episode was engineered by Brooks. Yes, engineered. He put on his little hard hat, his little glow in the dark vest, his orange reflector vest, I should say. Engineer punk. Brooks demanded that Nemeth be told to leave and that he would be flown out of Greensboro immediately. Khan, for his part, went along with Brooks out of his deep admiration. Okay, it's a bit now. Now it's a bit. Now it's not even like, now it's just comedy. Now it's just funny. Like this is like, now it's funny. It's just a bit. On August 15, 2023, Nemeth contacted AEW's Legal group and complained about being ejected from the event at the direction of Brooks. AEW lawyers were themselves stunned and could offer no explanation for the conduct of Brooks and Khan. Yes, I'm sure the company's legal representation were stunned. I'm sure the company's representation, talking about like the boss and probably one of the top executives in the company, I'm sure they'd be like, wow, we don't know what to say. No, I'm pretty sure stunned was not part of it. Brooks and Khan, though, hell of a tag team name when you think about it. 36. On November 18, 2024, Nemeth wrestled for the last time for AEW. 37. Nemeth continued to follow up with AEW's legal department in the hope of trying to resolve this situation and to avoid further conflict. In a bizarre email, AEW attorney Chris Peck reached out and threatened legal action against Nemeth and accused him of employing a ghostwriter in his emails. Do we believe that it is the same ghostwriter that penned this lawsuit? Because if so, Ryan, you need to hire a better ghostwriter. Jesus fucking Christ. On November 25, 2024, Brooks left AEW to wrestle for the organization's main competitor, WWE. Khan was... At 39, Khan was heartbroken by the departure of Brooks, his idol, and that he adored in every way. Bravo. Oh, it's such a tale of heartbreak. A tale of heartbreak and love lost. What a tremendous line. Also, CM Punk left in 2023. As Chad is duly pointing out here. On November 25th, 2024, wasn't the old Phil wrestling at the, wasn't he in the War Games match? Khan was furious. 40. Khan was furious with Nemeth. Khan believes that Brooks left AEW because of Nemeth. There is no shot that Khan believes Brooks left AEW because of Nemeth. Do you know why? CM Punk left AEW. CM Punk left AEW because Tony Khan canned him. He told him to hit the bricks because he threatened to take a swing at him. He got canned. 41. The defendants have embarked upon a campaign to blackball Nemeth from professional wrestling. All right, I got to hear this. Specifically, Tony Khan blames Nemeth for Brooks leaving AEW. Unless he's been, of course we're not privy to all these conversations, but I feel like something like this would have leaked at some point. Right? Tony Khan blames Nemeth for Brooks leaving AEW and has used his significant resources to make sure that Nemeth can never again make a living in wrestling. I can fucking guarantee that Tony Khan doesn't give a flying fuck about Ryan Nemeth. Probably less about Nick. He does. Why would he give a shit about this guy who was a prelim act the entirety of his time in AEW, who seemed like an insufferable guy to work with, to be honest, when I'm reading this stuff? He probably even forgot about him until all this shit started to pop off. We're talking about, being heartbroken and, having a deep obsession, Nemeth comes across as the jilted lover here, right? He comes across as the guy who was left. He comes across as the girl who was left by her guy to go to hook up with another girl, right? So she's trying to, position herself, come across as, oh, I don't care about them. And obviously they were in cahoots and they both hate me and they were both out to get me all along, and it's just like, you were the issue all along. That's fucking hilarious. And he works for TNA, and chat's pointing it out too. He works for TNA. He wrestles for TNA. He's currently under the umbrella of the biggest wrestling company in the world. Not TNA, by the way. Can you imagine how horrible, can you imagine how little money he's making in TNA that he feels he has to resort to this? 42. The conduct of each of the defendants was malicious in that defendants intended to cause injury to the plaintiff. Defendants acted willfully and with a conscious disregard for the rights of the plaintiff. Per Fightful, Nemeth is seeking compensatory punitive damages, and demands a jury trial. What? Man of the people. Just wants to make sure that everything is settled backstage. Nope. We're going to make a show out of it. There is, look, okay. I am saddened because I want to read the rest now. I want to read the whole thing. I feel like I'm missing dessert. I feel like I had a nice little appetizers, a great entree, but I'm lacking a dessert. This meal is not complete. I need to read the rest. I've got to find a way to read the rest, especially when you consider that. Did you guys and gals and non-binary pals see this? Because of course, David Bixenspan, shelled out to get it, right? And this is actually, see, point 3, right? Like I said before, like the introductions and so on and so forth. They added this picture. When I say they, Ryan Nemeth added this picture of Tony Khan to the lawsuit. Tony Khan is an individual residing in the state of Florida. Here, Khan is pictured at the 2024 NFL draft. And he picks like David says here, a blatant troll picture in the lawsuit. This is incredible stuff. I have not read something so obviously petty. I have not read anything so obviously, jilted, jealous, petty. And the thing here is that, here's the thing, is that I am convinced that Nemeth has a leg to stand on. Like, objectively speaking, okay? Disregard the presentation, disregard the suit. Think about it. You're trying to do your job, then this one higher up, this one executive is fucking with you. And he's fucking with you to the point that he's keeping you from doing your job. Okay, you put out a tweet poking a little fun at him, right? And he escalated it to the levels that are expected when it comes to Phil Brooks, right? So you go to work, or at least you try to do your work. You're being sent home, even though you're getting the dates fucked up. It still happened. You're trying to get help from the legal counsel, right? And we talked about this a couple of months ago when it was revealed that Nemeth was trying to work it out with HR when what's her name? When Mega was still around. And she was very open and understanding to it, and she was trying to find a resolution. And then Chris Peck came in, who seems to be a complete asshole, right? One of these asshole corporate lawyers, right? He just comes across like one of those. And he just like throws everything aside and is like, I don't have time for this, and trying to find a settlement. Didn't he try to find a settlement with Nemeth, and Nemeth was dragging it out? And at some point Peck was like, the deal's off the table. You know, seems to me, or I might be misremembering, but I feel like I feel that was part of it. And I'm convinced that there's something he could do here, right? Like, that's the thing. It's like there's not something that he could do, but he has a leg to stand on, is my point. He absolutely has a leg to stand on. Nemeth does. But the way it's presented, the way this lawsuit is put together and presented with the dates all fucked up, going back in time and so on and so forth, and trying to present Tony Khan as a complete and utter clown. I mean, there is no way a judge looks at this and says, I do believe that this makes a lot of sense to me. No, the judge is going to look at this and is going to be like, the court does not have time to have its resources wasted on this. Go back and rewrite this shit. It's phenomenally bad stuff. Like, it's phenomenally bad and funny. It is incredibly funny. My favorite, the twist, is when we go back in time on June 17, 2023 to talk about the event that happened on June 21st. That's the twist. Didn't see that one coming. Oh, this is a farce. Like, this lawsuit makes Stephen P. New look like a genius. That's what this does. He put his fucking, this is what he did. His lawsuit is put together like an exposed video script for YouTube, right? You guys, gals, non-binary pals, have all watched an exposed video on YouTube, right? When such and such exposed, and then they break down all the things that happened, and sometimes they have some solid proof to back it up. Sometimes it's conjecture, but that's what it ultimately reads like. It's a Tony Khan and Phil Brooks exposed. That's what it comes across as. That was good. I'm glad we got to share that all together today. It's not going anywhere. I can't see how this is going to go anywhere. I don't understand. I don't see how this is going to go anywhere. Why don't we get into some lawsuit stuff? Because there's some things that have been happening in the world of professional wrestling legalese, particularly involving WWE. You know, we've covered the Ryan Nemeth lawsuit and had a good laugh. Here might not be so comical, but still stuff that I feel we need to cover and we need to put out there. Vince McMahon's legal team calls Janel Grant's amended complaint bad faith. WWE also files to oppose. This is stuff that happened just a couple of days ago on February 21st in regards to as you can tell, the Janel Grant lawsuit against WWE, Vince McMahon, and John Laurinaitis. Vince McMahon's legal team on Friday filed an expected opposition to Janel Grant's attempt to amend her lawsuit against him, WWE, and former executive John Laurinaitis. This latest filing from McMahon is in response to Grant's expanded complaint, which adds new details and allegations against McMahon and others. WWE filed its separate opposition to Grant's amendment on Friday evening. The oppositions, filed in the U.S. District Court for the District of Connecticut, presents cases to block Grant's motion to amend her complaint, arguing that her request is untimely. McMahon's filing goes further, claiming the expanded complaint is made in bad faith. Grant's lawsuit alleges that when she was a WWE employee, she was sexually assaulted by McMahon and Laurinaitis and trafficked by McMahon, who was allegedly enabled by the company. So here is a quote by Jessica T. Rosenberg, McMahon's attorney. Grant's filing is teeming with proposed additional allegations that were available to her when she filed her initial complaint and is a bad faith attempt to use this court's docket to gain an advantage in the court of public opinion. McMahon's lawyers argue that any new allegations related to this alleged coercion of Grant into signing a January 2022 NDA, which is a central element in the legal case, are irrelevant because she accepted the first $1 million settlement payment. By keeping the financial compensation, they argue, Grant effectively ratified the contract, nullifying any claims of duress. WWE's filing argues against that. WWE's filing again argues against that the notion raised by Grant's attorneys that the SEC settlement with McMahon in January is a material development that is highly relevant. The company's legal representation, led by Daniel Toll and Paul Weiss, claimed that the SEC settlement only supports the validity of the NDA between McMahon and Grant, as the SEC presupposed, that the contract was enforceable. Therefore, in WWE's view, and of that of the other defendants, the arbitration clause in the NDA should be upheld, moving this matter out of public court, as the SEC presupposed that the contract was enforceable. So basically they're saying, the SEC was okay with all of this. So in their view, and in the view of the other defendants, the arbitration clause has to be enforced, right? Because let's not forget, Grant wants to take this to court, wants to circumvent the arbitration. She feels that that there's enough of a case here to not negotiate behind closed doors in arbitration. She wants legal. She wants a legal process behind this. An attorney so that was WWE's filing here. An attorney for Laurinaitis submitted a filing later on Friday, adopting the arguments asserted by McMahon's team. Oh, like a good little yes man should. Tell me what you want, Vince. What are you doing, Vince? I'll say what you want me to say, Vince. As of Friday afternoon, WWE's attorneys had yet to submit a filing in opposition to the amendment. McMahon's side contends that Grant has provided no legitimate reason for the delay in filing the amendment, and that many of the proposed changes, few of which they say are even new allegations, are legally futile. The filing accuses Grant's legal team of attempting to inject stale allegations for media attention. Goddamn, right? Citing her attorney's previous statements. The opposition document also asserts that many of Grant's new claims stem from information she purportedly had when the lawsuit was initially filed, but chose not to include at the time, which I would assume is normal, because you're not going to play your entire hand while filing. And if you're filing an amendment, from what I understand, again, I'm not a lawyer, strangely enough. I'm not a lawyer, but if you are making an amendment to your filing, you have to provide additional information to justify making that amendment. So of course she's going to, the Grant's team is going to inject more stuff into the filing that they hadn't previously because they were probably keeping that for court, which makes a lot of sense because again, why would you play your entire hand in the filing? You need to put just enough to convince a judge, and for the amendment, you have to put enough to convince that there is reason to amend the filing, essentially. Grant's team put out a press release simultaneously with the filing of her updated complaint last month. McMahon characterized the press release as tabloid style, he'd know, citing its claims that the amended lawsuit contained never before seen text and voice messages from McMahon that pull back the curtain on the dangerous workplace culture McMahon created at WWE. We have a quote here. The proposed amendment complaint is the fulfillment of Grant's stated objective to bring more firepower to her case from a PR perspective, unquote. McMahon's new filing stated, referencing remarks made by Grant's attorney Ann Callis during a media call last September. Callis, in that call, emphasized the need for stronger public messaging, stating that, quote, Grant deserved to be portrayed as a survivor of human trafficking and sexual abuse. To that end, we recently brought on additional firepower through Kendra of Barkov Lamy and her team at SKDK. Kendra Barkov Lamy and her team at SKDK. You recall that indeed happened last September. Grant's proposed amendment complaint submitted late January significantly expands the length of her original lawsuit, growing from 67 to 101 pages. Among the new allegations, Grant claims McMahon instructed her to create explicit content for WWE creative executive Michael Hayes, and that McMahon shared explicit images of her without her consent. The complaint also states that McMahon attempted to arrange a sexual encounter between Grant and WWE star Brock Lesnar as part of his contract negotiations, which is absolutely bonkers. Further, the lawsuit details McMahon's alleged involvement in directing Grant to undergo treatments at Dr. Carlin Coker's clinic, Peak Wellness, where she claims she was prescribed substances without knowing what they were. Coker, previously referred to in the lawsuit as Celebrity Doctor, is now identified by name, and Grant reserves the right to add him as a defendant. WWE also argued against Grant's claims that allegations against Coker present any new facts that justify amending her lawsuit, despite Grant's petition in Connecticut State Court for records from the doctor. And WWE's lawyers said the following: the fact that Grant hopes to obtain additional information in a separate action at some point in the future does not provide good cause to amend. The complaint also explicitly names WWE executives who were previously anonymized. WWE President Nick Khan, former Chief Operating Officer Brad Blum, and former General Counsel Brian Nurse are now referenced in the complaint. They are not accused of any physical abuse, but Grant alleges executives enabled McMahon. McMahon's opposition to the updated lawsuit characterizes changes to her complaint like those as merely a PR tactic that doesn't add meaningful legal substance to her case. McMahon maintains that the SEC's action in January to penalize him $400,000 and order him to repay WWE $1.3 million is a procedural matter, not an admission of misconduct. The defendant's attorneys emphasized that Grant had already made clear her intent to amend her complaint before the SEC's decision was even made public. Grant's legal team frames the SEC penalties as further evidence of McMahon's attempts to obscure financial transactions related to his alleged misconduct. The timing of McMahon's opposition follows a federal appeals court decision made earlier this month that upheld a lower court's decision forcing McMahon and his former attorney to turn over documents to a grand jury. The ruling confirmed that prosecutors established probable cause that McMahon engaged in a scheme to circumvent WWE's internal controls to conceal NDA payments tied to sexual misconduct allegations. There's a lot of stuff going on with Vince right now. Holy shit. Like, it is a mess. McMahon's legal team insists that the investigation is over and will not result in criminal charges. Judge Sarah F. Russell will determine whether Grant will be allowed to proceed with her amended complaint. If the court denies her motion, the lawsuit will remain in its original form as filed in January 2024. All three defendants have previously sought to move this case to private arbitration and will likely refile motions to do so after a decision is made on whether Grant's amended complaint will stand. WWE contends that nothing in what Grant added in her proposed complaint, quote, moves the needle on WWE's motion to compel arbitration, unquote. WWE's attorneys also said, rather than alleging new facts purportedly relevant to the question of enforceability of the arbitration provision, Grant merely asserts the legal conclusion that she was coerced and fraudulently induced to accept the arbitration provision. If anything, these new paragraphs strengthen WWE's motion to compel by confirming that Grant was specifically aware of the arbitration provision before signing the agreement because her attorney brought it to her attention. That's the latest update right here. What do we make of all of this so far? What is the big analysis? Well, after reading this, there's nothing really out of the ordinary. Brandon Thurston, who wrote the article, of course, said straight off the bat that this was an expected opposition to Janel Grant's attempt to amend her lawsuit. This, of course, is very procedural. If you are the defendants, you will want to do this kind of thing. You will want to oppose the addition of extra information. Vince, of course, went out and filed his opposition, but WWE did as well, right? To continue to prop it up. My main takeaway here in all of this, because none of this really surprises me, but my main takeaway really is this. WWE continues to look out for its former owner. They just continue to look out for Vince, make sure he's okay, stick up for him to a degree. Like, this is a company who currently is doing everything they can to let us know that Vince is gone from the company, that they have nothing to do with him moving forward, that it's a brand new WWE, a kinder, gentler WWE, with Vince now finally gone from the company. And yet so many problems continue to persist, right? And if I still maintain this, and I've said it on multiple occasions, and I said it very, very recently as well, and I'm going to echo it one more time. If WWE truly was serious about making amends, showing that the company has indeed changed, that it's not the same place as when Vince was around, they would do actual changes to how things are approached, to how things go down in the company. And I don't see all that much change these days in this company. I really don't. There really isn't all that much change going around. There's still a lot of there's still a lot of things that persist, and that the company still apparently wants to defend itself against. Whereas they could just they really could just do some they really could put in place new things, get rid of the old, get rid of all of the crew that learned under Vince, that experienced WWE under Vince, who are undoubtedly still quite under the Vince influence, even though he's not there anymore. There's been no change, and WWE is still going to bat with Vince on this when they could just be eating their lumps, when they just could outright be saying, this is a new company, we've changed. It is unfortunate what has happened under our previous owner. There hasn't been any break in that form. There hasn't been any formal statements here that would outright say, we are, what happened under the watch of our previous owner and CEO, president, is unfortunate. And we are committed to moving forward on this, and it's like, WWE will, recognizes the errors that occurred under that period, but there's none of that happens. There's none of that happens. They're propping up Vince. They're propping up Laurinaitis. They're sticking by him, even if they have nothing to do with the company anymore, which is admittedly really weird. Admittedly, it's kind of weird. Like, if you're a company, if your CEO resigns in disgrace, right, for whatever reasons, let's say reasons similar to Vince, and he gets sued and you get dragged into it, do you think like you come out and not say a word about Vince? Or the CEO, I should say? You want to defend yourself, I can understand that. But you can also distance yourself. Look, whatever happened is we were not aware or whatever the fuck, but we are a new company now. New rules, new ways of doing things. Got rid of we drained the swamp. It's all new now. WWE never did that and probably will not do that either. All we can do is continue to watch this develop. Obviously, still a long ways to go. Probably the next time we hear talk about this, about Janel Grant's suit, is going to be about the amended complaint. That's likely going to be the next step here. So it's not just lawsuits that are reportedly an issue in WWE. Apparently, there's reports running around, particularly from Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics, who's been working particularly hard. There's been reports that despite the company posting record profits, some WWE employees say that hasn't translated to better pay or treatment. So this is an article, again, that we're going to be reading off of the Figure 4 Online Wrestling Observer. Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics reported Monday that multiple WWE employees speaking on the condition of anonymity say they face reduced benefits, minimal raises, and increased workloads following WWE's merger with UFC. Among the benefits no longer available to WWE staff is an employee stock purchase plan, which previously allowed them to purchase shares at a 15% discount. Complimentary tickets to live events, a long-standing perk for WWE staff, are also no longer provided. Employees further complained about receiving only 3% cost of living raise this year, despite rising living expenses in the Connecticut and New York areas. Even employees with strong performance reviews were informed pay increases would remain minimal due to budget restrictions imposed by upper management. Staff also noted increased workloads, including new responsibilities tied to UFC, and potential expansions into other Endeavor-owned properties like Professional Bull Riders and IMG. WrestleNomics reached out to WWE for comment, but has not yet has yet to receive a response. Just wild stuff again. It's like all of the we're not going to read in detail the whole thing, but it's kind of crazy to think that this billion-dollar company that is generating revenue hand over fist, quite frankly, that are just printing money at this point, are currently unavailable, incapable. I mean, maybe unavailable too, to sustain the salaries and benefits that WWE once benefited from. And it's interesting, right, that this all happens under Ari Emanuel, under TKO, UFC, companies that are notorious for underpaying, for not being fair to their contracted workers, and apparently their employees as well are expected to just sort of suck it in, I guess. Work more, work harder, but don't expect a big payday. It's a very interesting situation, and I don't know if it's related to this here. Ari Emanuel officially becomes a billionaire? Do you think this might be related? Do you think this might be related, that the Endeavor CEO has seen his net worth skyrocket over the last year as the value of WWE and UFC owner TKO Group has doubled in value? Am I jumping the gun? The Hollywood Titan, this is a report off of the Hollywood Reporter. The Hollywood Titan and CEO of entertainment and media agency giant Endeavor has seen his net worth soar over the last 12 months as bets on WWE and UFC have paid off handsomely. Bloomberg's Billionaire Index anointed Emanuel as part of the rarefied club of the super rich, owing in large part to his holdings in Endeavor, which has enjoyed a 48% rise in its share price in the last year, according to Bloomberg, of course. Endeavor's gains have been underpinned by a majority stake in TKO Group Holdings, Inc., the parent company of WWE and UFC. TKO, of which Emanuel is also the CEO, has nearly doubled in value in the past 12 months. Despite a complicated relationship with founder Vince McMahon, WWE has gone from strength to strength in recent years, securing a whopping $5 billion international streaming rights deal with Netflix for its marquee TV product Monday Night Raw and its crown jewel events like WrestleMania. Likewise, UFC is enjoying a level of popularity and culturally relevancy it has never reached before, with UFC CEO Dana White close to President Donald Trump, and the company leveling up its events to be held at world-class venues like Las Vegas's The Sphere. A vivid indication of Emanuel's current wealth and clout has been his recent involvement with a bid to take over artificial intelligence unicorn OpenAI. Emanuel was among a group of investors led by Elon Musk that made an unsolicited $97.4 billion bid for the group behind the ChatGPT service. That is just bonkers amount of money. $97.4 billion is what they're cobbling together to do a hostile takeover on ChatGPT. Anyway, we're not a tech podcast. I don't know what you think, chat. I don't know if Ari Emanuel becoming a billionaire has something to do with WWE staff not getting proper raises, seeing their employee programs get slashed. I don't know if that has something to do with it. Like, it's fascinating to me. And it boggles my mind when corporations start printing so much money for themselves, right? Because WWE, UFC, they're these immense money makers. And all of this money that's being made is not, I'll say shared, but you know what I don't want to start sounding like a communist. I'm not saying, suddenly comrades must all have same amount of money. That's not what I'm saying, but is trickled down to the people who are actually helping putting these events together, right? Instead, it's like, no, you're going to work harder. You're going to go out there and you're going to fight in our rings. You're going to do the UFC thing, but we're not going to pay you all that much. It blows my mind that they make so much money, and it all ends up in the pockets of just a very select group of people. And I understand how capitalism works. Don't get me wrong. But wouldn't you want to cultivate your talent? Wouldn't you want to ensure that they're in better spots, that they're comfortable, that they wouldn't want to leave, that you want to show them that you're proud of them and that you're thrilled with the work that they're doing by, just giving them paychecks that are on the level of what to expect from that's on the level of the work that they put in. And it really does boggle my mind. I don't understand how that works. And that about does it for another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Thank you again very much for joining me this evening, or this day, whenever you decided to listen to this. One last call for a rating, a review, a like. All those things help out tremendously. But before we leave, come and join me on live stream if you can, whenever you can. I stream multiple times a week, youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes. You can subscribe to the channel, make sure you don't miss an opportunity, and they're good times. It's a lot of fun. We'd love to have you there. Otherwise, I will be back Thursday for another AEW Dynamite review right here on the podcast. So keep that in mind. I will be around. So there you go. Thank you all again so very much for joining me. Go watch some Randy Orton and get back to me. And I'll see you next time.